Hey everybody, welcome to another Watch Dogs 3 based speculation video with some Watch Dogs 2 gameplay in the background. That's not the point. The point is, apparently, a couple months ago it was discovered that there are a set of coordinates hinting to the next Watch Dogs setting, supposedly. Now, do I believe this? That's yet to be decided. However, this was posted a few months ago and it's only really been brought to my attention in the past couple of days, and I was debating whether or not to make a second video on this, so here I go. I'm gonna make a second video on this. So in the update ending for Watch Dogs 2, there is this little file which has got a name, which are actually a set of coordinates: 51.462.014 and minus 0.112504. Now when entered into Google Maps, these coordinates bring you to London, which is very interesting. Now I'm not saying that confirms the next setting or anything. However, these coordinates were clearly placed with the knowledge that they would lead to London, because had it been random, more often than not it would wind up in the sea. The coordinates are specifically in the district of Brixton in London, which upon some research appears to be one of the more dangerous areas of the city. Does this mean that Watch Dogs 3, so to speak, will be set in Brixton in the good old London? Well, not entirely sure. This could be a massive coincidence, or it could be a throw-off tactic. Now what's interesting is the file says something about dead sex cells popping up in the Middle East, South America, Europe, and there are also other hacktivist groups establishing themselves. So essentially what it's saying there is that Watch Dogs has taken off and it's now no longer just going to be set in America. Because through this file they've essentially made the whole world fair game for a Watch Dogs game. And then they've put these coordinates which lead to an English city, which seems quite interesting to me. Now, you're not losing your minds. Yes, Ubisoft did make Assassin's Creed Syndicate, which was also set in London. So Ubisoft has clearly shown interest in making games in that city. But it also could mean that Watch Dogs being set in London could be a bit of it might not be well received this early on. I mean, it's highly likely that these coordinates are just a little Easter egg, a little bit of a gentle nudge to Assassin's Creed Syndicate and a throw-off to Watch Dogs fans. Or it could just be a coincidence, although that's highly unlikely. Now, Ubisoft, despite their aging, has always been very cryptic when it comes to hints. They hinted at the Desmond Son reveal as early as Assassin's Creed Brotherhood. Also in Assassin's Creed, they've been hinting at Egypt for literally years. But usually, knowing Ubisoft, they'll leave a lot more piecing it together to you than give you a set of coordinates and see who enters it into Google Maps to find out where the next Watch Dogs setting is. So it could be a throw-off, or it could in fact be a future setting for Watch Dogs, not necessarily the setting for Watch Dogs 3. It's most likely that this is hinting at something, although what is still not quite clear. The most obvious answer possibly being a future game, but we'll have to wait and see. However, regardless of whether or not this is the case and Watch Dogs 3 will be going to London, I wouldn't expect an announcement till at least next year, and probably more ideally the year after, 2019. My next point is, do I personally think that London would be a great setting for a Watch Dogs game? I can imagine it having a more murky and gritty feel than Watch Dogs 2, but it would probably wind up seeming quite similar to the first Watch Dogs game in terms of grit, unless they do something. So in that sense, I do suppose it would work. Also, not being based in an American city will make the entire game feel completely different to the other ones, because English cities and American ones are very different. So the experience would be, although probably similar to the first Watch Dogs game in tone, it would look different and it would feel different. And I feel as if it would be a good idea to go to an English city, or a city that isn't in the United States. So it wouldn't make sense if the next Watch Dogs game wasn't in an American city for starters, because they'd want to have that difference. And of all the cities that aren't in the United States to go for, is London really the one that would work the best? Now, there are many cities that they could choose from, and these coordinates pinpoint London, which makes me think that maybe London is where the next Watch Dogs game will be, like the most people who've seen this. If that is a legitimate coordinates to the next location, then why did they choose London? Maybe for the funny slang. Who knows? Maybe for the lack of guns? I mean, there could be many reasons, and guessing would only really be throwing your shit at the wall and hoping that it sticks. Now, the main reason why people might argue that an English setting for an open world city based sort of modern game thriller thing wouldn't work would probably be the gun control laws in the United Kingdom being that much more stricter than they are in the United States. Well, that's both true that that is a thing, but it's also not necessarily as bad as people think. Now, I'm not going to get into depth with the law, however, in London especially, I do believe there are certain armed police units. And also, just because the gun laws are stricter and you'd probably get arrested for carrying one, it doesn't necessarily mean that the character you play as won't be carrying one and people won't be carrying them. Also, Ubisoft could use this to put a bit more emphasis on non-lethal playthroughs. So the lack of guns, or the lack of immediate guns, doesn't necessarily mean that London will be a bad setting for a game of Watch Dogs' nature. It would probably also add to the difference between an English-based Watch Dogs and the previous Watch Dogs games, because in place of guns, a very common weapon over here in the United Kingdom are in fact knives. So we could see a higher use of knives among gangs and shit. Being in a completely different country, another thing that would be different is the architecture. Now, the architecture focused mostly in the United Kingdom are shorter buildings for one. I mean, there are a lot of tall buildings in the cities, however the cities also do have a fair few short buildings. So maybe there would be an opportunity for a more fluid parkour experience than what Watch Dogs 2 provided, which was, although fairly fluent, you couldn't really get very far in parkour. I imagine a setting with a lot more shorter buildings would probably be more accessible via rooftop. Combine this parkour with a trench coat, a Cockney accent and some cheeky slaps and you've got quite the experience on your hands. I also feel as if London would be an ideal setting to sort of take Watch Dogs back to what it was like in Watch Dogs 1 a little bit, and have that more gritty feel, which I feel worked a little bit more than this social justice warrior hippie let's go and fight for freedom shit, you know. I feel as if what worked better was the grit with Watch Dogs. So do I feel as if London would work for Watch Dogs 3? Yeah, I do. I do believe that the setting is probably one of the few places that would probably work the best. So London, in theory, is a good place to perhaps set a Watch Dogs game because of that potential grit feel, that unique look. The list goes on. Of course, on that one, you guys are going to have to let me know what you think in the comments section. But I'm of the mind that, yeah, it probably would work, actually. It could work quite well, in fairness. Though, I mean, London definitely would not be my first choice for a Watch Dogs game, like, ever, or a game in general. It's definitely not a bad place to set a game like this, because there's always that chance that we'll be blown away and it will work, because it's one of those places that could, in theory, give us an experience that we've been wanting from the Watch Dogs franchise. But of course, this entire thing is to be taken with a pinch of salt, because those are only numbers and they could mean anything. They might not necessarily be coordinates, though that's the most likely scenario. I don't know what else they could be, but they could be something else for all we know. So that needs to be considered as well, that this could just be a random piece of riffraff that Ubisoft put in as a throw-off tactic. But that being considered, it probably is something. The numbers bear no other meaning. So what does this mean? Does it mean the next Watch Dogs game is in London? Of course, you're going to have to let me know what you think on that one, guys. I personally think it probably means something along those lines. I'm not quite sure what. But thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Be sure to go ahead, leave a like, subscribe, share, comment. Tell your friends about this video and channel. Let me know. Do you think London's a good setting for a Watch Dogs game or a bad one? And I shall see you all in the next one with another video at some point. So yeah. So yeah.